The year was 2347, and humanity had spread its wings far beyond Earth. The stars were no longer distant pinpricks of light. They were destinations, each one home to colonies, research outposts, or bustling trade hubs. Among the countless ships traversing the galaxy was the Aegis, a sleek Federation starship commanded by Captain Alina Voss. Her crew was known for their skill in exploration, often venturing into uncharted sectors where others feared to go. On this particular mission, the Aegis drifted through an expanse of space so empty it felt unnatural. There were no nearby stars, no asteroid belts, just endless blackness stretching in every direction. It was supposed to be a routine sweep, but something unusual caught the attention of Ensign Clara Hayes, the ship's sensor operator. "Captain," she said, her voice tinged with curiosity, "there's a faint energy signature ahead, barely detectable." Alina raised an eyebrow. "Faint or cloaked?" Clara hesitated before answering. "I'm not sure. It doesn't match any known technology in our database." Intrigued, Alina ordered the ship to move closer. As they approached, the source of the signal revealed itself, a derelict spacecraft floating silently in the void. Its surface was covered in strange patterns that glowed faintly, like veins of bioluminescent algae under the sea. The design was alien, yet oddly familiar, as if it belonged to a culture long forgotten by time. "Does anyone recognize this?" Alina asked, turning to her science officer, Dr. Ravi Patil. He shook his head, his eyes wide with fascination. "Nothing like it in the archives. But look at those curves, the symmetry. This wasn't built for war." Whatever made this valued artistry as much as function. Despite the eerie silence surrounding the vessel, Alina decided to investigate further. She assembled a small team consisting of herself, Ravi, and engineer Mylin, whose expertise would come in handy if the ship proved dangerous. Dressed in protective suits, they boarded the craft through a jagged hole in its hull, likely caused by centuries of micrometeorite impacts. Inside, the air was cold and stale, heavy with the weight of abandonment. Strange symbols adorned the walls, glowing softly despite the lack of power. Ravi ran his fingers over them, muttering to himself, some kind of writing, maybe even poetry. They were storytellers, whoever they were. Mai, meanwhile, examined a control panel near what appeared to be the bridge. With a few adjustments, she managed to restore minimal power. Lights flickered on, revealing more intricate carvings and designs. A holographic display activated suddenly, showing images of a vibrant civilization. Beings with luminous skin and elongated limbs, dancing beneath twin suns, building towering cities, and sharing knowledge with other species. But then the scene shifted. Fire rained from the skies. Cities crumbled. Beings fled in terror as monstrous ships descended upon them. The message ended abruptly, leaving the team stunned. "What happened to them?" Mai whispered, breaking the silence. Alina clenched her fists. Whoever these aliens were, their story wasn't over. Not yet. Somewhere out there, answers, and perhaps survivors, waited to be found. As the team returned to the Aegis, the derelict ship loomed behind them, a silent beacon calling out across the ages. For the first time in years, Alina felt a spark of excitement mixed with unease. This discovery could change everything, for better or worse. And she knew one thing for certain: humanity couldn't turn away now. Back aboard the Aegis, the crew gathered in the briefing room, their minds still reeling from what they had seen inside the derelict ship. The holographic images of the alien civilization haunted them, its beauty, its destruction, and the unanswered questions it left behind. Captain Alina Voss stood at the head of the table, her sharp gaze scanning the faces of her team. "We need answers," she said firmly. "Who are they? What happened to them? And why are we finding their ship now, centuries later?" Dr. Ravi Patil leaned forward, his fingers brushing against the tablet in front of him. "I've been analyzing those symbols we found on the walls. They're not just random patterns. They're a language, a very old one." He paused, his excitement barely contained. "From what I can tell, this species called themselves the Valith. Their culture seems to have revolved around sharing knowledge and fostering connections with other races." Elena nodded thoughtfully. That would explain why their ship looked so artistic. But if they valued peace and cooperation, why did someone destroy them? Before anyone could answer, Engineer Mai Lin interrupted. "There's something else you should know," she said, pulling up data on the main screen. "While I was repairing that control panel, I stumbled across an AI core hidden deep within the ship's systems. It's damaged, but it might still hold critical information about the Valith." The room fell silent as everyone processed this revelation. If the AI was functional, it could unlock secrets that had been buried for centuries. Elena gave the order to retrieve it immediately. Hours later, the AI core sat secured in the Aegis's lab, surrounded by diagnostic equipment. May worked tirelessly alongside Ravi, trying to reactivate it without causing further damage. Finally, after countless adjustments, a faint hum filled the air. A hologram flickered to life above the core, a shimmering figure resembling the Valith beings they'd seen earlier. Its voice was soft but firm, speaking in melodic tones that resonated through the lab. "I am Guardian Prime," it announced, "protector of the Valith legacy. For untold cycles, I have waited for those who could understand our plight." Ravi quickly began translating the AI's words into Federation standard. As Guardian Prime spoke, fragments of the Valith's history unfolded before them. They learned how the Valith thrived by traveling between worlds, teaching others advanced technologies and philosophies. But their golden age came to an abrupt end when a powerful empire known as the Zorathians rose to dominance. Jealous of the Valith's influence, the Zorathians launched a brutal campaign to eradicate them. "They sought to silence us," Guardian Prime continued, sorrow evident in its tone. "Our cities burned, our people scattered. Those who survived fled into hiding, hoping to preserve what little remained of our culture. But the Zorathians never stopped hunting us." The AI paused, its glowing form dimming slightly. Then it added, "If you have found me, then perhaps there is hope. You must help us." Mai frowned. "Help you do what? Where are the survivors?" Guardian Prime hesitated, as if searching its fragmented memory banks. "Coordinates. Remnants of my kind remain on distant moons and asteroids. But beware. The Zorathians watch even now. They will stop at nothing to ensure no trace of the Valith survives." Elena exchanged a glance with her crew. This mission had just become far more complicated and dangerous. Yet, something about the AI's plea struck a chord deep within her. She couldn't ignore the desperation in its voice or the tragic echoes of humanity's own past struggles. "All right," she said finally, standing tall. "We'll follow these coordinates. If there are survivors out there, we owe it to them, and to ourselves, to find out." As the crew prepared to set course for the unknown, Ravi muttered quietly, almost to himself, "History has a way of repeating itself. Let's just hope this time we get it right." With determination burning in their hearts, the Aegis turned toward the stars once more, ready to uncover the truth about the forgotten race, and perhaps rewrite their fate. The Aegis soared through the vast expanse of space, its engines humming steadily as it followed the coordinates provided by Guardian Prime. The crew worked tirelessly, preparing for whatever awaited them at their destination. Captain Elena Voss paced the bridge, her mind racing with possibilities. Were there truly survivors of the Valith? If so, how would they react to humanity's arrival? And what role did the Zorathians play in all this? Dr. Ravi Patel spent hours poring over the data Guardian Prime had shared. He marveled at the complexity of the Valith language and culture, piecing together fragments of their history. They weren't just wanderers, he told Mai Lin one evening as they reviewed schematics in the lab. They were teachers, healers, peacemakers. Their entire society was built on helping others grow. May nodded thoughtfully, but couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. If they were so peaceful, why did the Zorathians hate them so much? She asked. Ravi sighed, rubbing his temples. Maybe because peace is dangerous to those who thrive on fear, or maybe it's simpler than that. They saw the Valeth as a threat to their power. Either way, we're walking into something bigger than us. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Marcus Kane monitored long-range sensors from the tactical station. His sharp eyes scanned for any sign of Zorethian activity. So far, the path ahead seemed clear, but he knew better than to let his guard down. "Captain," he said during one briefing, "if the Zorethians are still hunting the Valeth, they'll have patrols out here. We need to stay cloaked until we know more." Alina agreed, ordering the ship to activate its stealth systems as they approached the designated moon. What they found when they arrived took everyone's breath away. The moon was barren, its surface pockmarked with craters and shrouded in perpetual twilight. Yet, amidst the desolation, there were signs of life. Faint heat signatures emanating from underground structures, hidden beneath layers of rock and dust. Using advanced scanning technology, the crew detected tunnels and chambers carved deep into the crust, designed to blend seamlessly with the natural landscape. "This has to be it," Alina murmured, staring at the readings on the main screen. "But look at these defenses. They've rigged traps and alarms everywhere. They don't want visitors." "Can you blame them?" Mai asked softly. "After everything they've been through, I'd be paranoid too." With caution guiding every decision, Alina assembled a small team to investigate. Dressed in reinforced suits equipped with cloaking devices, she led Ravi, Mai, and Marcus down to the moon's surface. As they descended into the tunnels, the air grew colder, heavier, carrying an almost tangible weight of secrecy. It wasn't long before they encountered their first Valeth survivor. Huddled near a dimly lit alcove, the being looked frail, its once luminous skin dulled by years of hardship. Its large, almond-shaped eyes widened in alarm at the sight of the humans, but instead of attacking, it raised a trembling hand in greeting. Ravi stepped forward cautiously, speaking slowly in the Valeth language he'd been studying. "We mean no harm," he said. "We come in peace." The alien hesitated, then responded haltingly in broken Federation standard. "You are not Zorethian." "No," Alina replied firmly. "We're human. We found your beacon. We want to help." At those words, tears welled up in the Valeth's eyes. It gestured for them to follow, leading them deeper into the tunnels. There they discovered a hidden settlement, a cluster of makeshift homes inhabited by dozens of Valeth refugees. Elders tended to children. Others worked quietly on repairing tools or tending crops grown under artificial light. As the humans introduced themselves, the Valeth listened intently, their expressions shifting between hope and distrust. One elder, a tall figure named Syra, approached Alina. Her voice carried both authority and wariness. "Why should we trust you?" she asked. "Many have promised aid before, only to abandon us." Alina met her gaze without flinching. "Because we've faced extinction ourselves. Because we know what it means to fight for survival. And because if we stand together, maybe we can stop the Zorethians once and for all." Syra studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well. But know this, if you betray us, you doom not just our people, but yourselves." The message was clear. Trust had to be earned. And as the crew returned to the Aegis, they realized the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was worth fighting for. The discovery of the Valeth settlement filled the crew of the Aegis with both hope and unease. While they had found survivors, it was clear that the Valeth were living on borrowed time. Their underground refuge was a fragile sanctuary, built to hide but not to defend. Every tunnel, every chamber whispered of fear, a people clinging to existence in the shadow of their enemies. Back aboard the ship, Captain Alina Voss called an emergency meeting with her senior staff. "We can't leave them here," she said firmly. "This place isn't safe. If the Zorethians find them, and they will, it'll be a massacre." Lieutenant Marcus Kane leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Agreed, but relocating them won't be easy. They've spent centuries staying hidden. Convincing them to trust us enough to move is going to take more than just words. Dr. Ravi Patel nodded. And even if they agree, where do we take them? We need somewhere secure, somewhere the Zorathians won't think to look. Alina's gaze shifted to Mai Lin, who had been quietly studying the schematics of the Violet tunnels. What about Terra Nova? May suggested. It's a Federation colony far from Zorathian-controlled space. The planet has plenty of resources, and its terrain could provide natural cover for the Violet until they're ready to integrate. The idea sparked cautious optimism among the team. Alina approved the plan, but she knew the hardest part lay ahead, convincing the Violet themselves. Down in the settlement, tension simmered as the humans presented their proposal. Elder Syra listened intently, her luminous eyes narrowing as Alina explained their plan. When the captain finished, silence hung heavy in the air. Finally, Syra spoke. You ask us to abandon everything we fought to protect, to risk capture, or worse, for the chance of a new beginning. It's not abandonment, Ravi interjected gently. It's survival. Your people have done incredible things to stay alive this long. But you can't keep running forever. Humanity has faced extinction before. We know what it means to fight for a future worth living for. Syra exchanged glances with the other elders, some nodding while others shook their heads in disagreement. One elder, a frail being named Kale, stepped forward. His voice trembled with anger. Trust has cost us dearly in the past. How do we know you won't betray us like so many others? Marcus stepped up, his tone measured yet firm. Because we're offering you protection, not conquest. Look around you. This base is falling apart. You're surviving, but barely. Staying here means waiting for the Zorathians to find you. Leaving gives you a chance to thrive again. Kale hesitated, his glowing skin dimming slightly as he considered the lieutenant's words. But before he could respond, alarms blared through the tunnels. Red lights flashed, casting eerie shadows across the walls. They're here, shouted one of the younger Violet, panic rising in his voice. Alina spun toward Mai. What's happening? Mai scanned her handheld device, her face pale. Zorathian drones. They must have tracked us somehow. They're scanning the surface right now. Panic spread like wildfire through the settlement. Children cried, elders scrambled to gather essentials, and guards rushed to activate defensive measures. Syra turned to Alina, desperation etched into her features. If you truly mean to help us, now is your chance to prove it. Without hesitation, Alina gave the order. Everyone back to the Aegis. Marcus, prep the ship for immediate launch. May, work with the Violet engineers to collapse the tunnels behind us. They can't follow us underground. Ravi, guide the civilians to safety. As chaos erupted around them, the crew sprang into action. The Violet moved quickly, trusting the humans despite their lingering doubts. Above ground, Zorathian drones scoured the barren landscape, their sensors probing for signs of life. But thanks to the Aegis cloaking technology, the ship remained invisible, a silent guardian watching over the evacuation. One by one, the Violet boarded the starship, their frail forms trembling with exhaustion and fear. As the last survivor stepped aboard, May detonated charges set along the tunnel entrances, sealing the settlement behind them. The Zorathians would find nothing but rubble. Back on the bridge, Alina watched as the moon disappeared into the distance. For now, they were safe, but she knew this was only the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, earning the Violet's trust and finding a way to protect them from the relentless hunters still lurking in the dark. As the stars stretched out before them, Syra approached Alina. You've given us a second chance, she said softly. Do not let it go to waste. The journey to Terra Nova was fraught with tension. The Violet refugees, though grateful for the rescue, remained wary of their human benefactors. They huddled in the temporary quarters aboard the Aegis, speaking in hushed tones as they watched the humans move about the ship. For a people who had spent centuries hiding from predators, trust did not come easily. Captain Alina Voss understood their hesitation. She knew that action spoke louder than words, and every decision she made during this voyage would either strengthen or shatter the fragile bond between their species. To bridge the gap, she encouraged her crew to interact with the Vailith, not as saviors, but as equals. Dr. Ravi Patel took the lead in fostering communication. He spent hours teaching the Vailith Federation standard, while learning phrases in their melodic language. Language is more than just words, he explained to Mai Lin one evening. It's a way to connect, to share stories, emotions, and ideas. If we want them to trust us, we need to show them we value what makes them unique. May nodded, her hands busy repairing a damaged piece of Vailith technology. And maybe we can learn something from them too, she added. Their engineering is elegant, so much cleaner than ours. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Marcus Kane worked with a group of young Vailith warriors to adapt their energy-based weapons for defensive purposes. Though skeptical at first, the warriors soon warmed to his practical approach. If we're going to survive, we'll need to fight smarter, not harder, Marcus told them. Your skills combined with our tactics could make all the difference. Despite these efforts, skepticism lingered among the Vailith elders. Elder Syra, in particular, kept her distance, observing the humans carefully. One day, she approached Elena on the observation deck, where the captain often stood gazing out at the stars. You speak of unity, Syra said, her voice calm but probing. But how can we believe you won't abandon us when it becomes inconvenient? History has taught us that alliances are fleeting. Elena turned to face her, meeting her gaze without flinching. I won't lie to you, Syra. There will be challenges ahead, moments when giving up might seem easier. But humanity has faced those moments before. We've fought wars, rebuilt cities, and overcome divisions within our own kind. What keeps us going isn't convenience, it's hope. And right now, your people represent that hope for us as much as we do for you. Syra studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Perhaps there is truth in your words, but hope alone cannot shield us from danger. As if on cue, alarms blared through the ship. Marcus's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain, we've got company. Zorethian cruisers have entered the sector. They're scanning for us. Elena's heart sank. The enemy had found them faster than expected. Quickly, she ordered the Aegis to activate its cloaking systems and alter course, weaving through dense asteroid fields to evade detection. The Vailith watched anxiously as the crew worked tirelessly to keep them safe. In the midst of the chaos, Guardian Prime, the AI recovered from the derelict ship, reached out to Elena. Its holographic form flickered to life on the bridge. The Zorethians will not stop until they find us, it warned. But their hatred blinds them. Use it against them. What do you mean? Elena asked. They seek destruction, but they also fear exposure. If the galaxy learns of their crimes, their power will crumble. An idea began to form in Elena's mind. Turning to Ravi, she said, we need to document everything. Their attacks, their atrocities. If we can expose the Zorethians, we might gain allies willing to stand against them. Ravi nodded eagerly. I'll start compiling evidence immediately. As the Aegis slipped further into the shadows, the Vailith began to see the humans in a new light, not as mere protectors, but as partners in a shared struggle. Slowly, walls of distrust began to crumble, replaced by tentative bonds of friendship. When the ship finally reached Terra Nova, the Vailith stepped onto the planet's lush surface with cautious optimism. Syra looked back at Elena, her expression softening. You've given us more than shelter, Captain. You've given us a reason to believe again. Elena smiled faintly. Let's build something worth believing in. For the first time since their journey began, the future felt less uncertain and far brighter. Terra Nova was a world of breathtaking beauty, its rolling green hills and shimmering rivers offering a stark contrast to the barren moon the Vailith had called home. For the first time in generations, they felt a glimmer of hope. Under the guidance of Captain Elena Voss and her crew, the refugees began constructing a new settlement, a blend of Violet elegance and human practicality. Children laughed as they played among the trees, while elders shared stories of their lost civilization with curious human settlers. But peace was fleeting. On the third day after their arrival, Lieutenant Marcus Kane detected unusual activity in orbit. Scanning the skies, he frowned as his instruments picked up faint energy signatures. Zorathian ships cloaked and lurking just beyond the planet's atmosphere. "Captain," he reported urgently, "they found us." Alina's jaw tightened. She had known the Zorathians wouldn't give up so easily, but she hadn't expected them to track the Aegis this quickly. "How many?" she asked, already moving toward the bridge. "3 cruisers, maybe more," Marcus replied. "They're holding position for now, but it's only a matter of time before they strike." Alina wasted no time. She ordered the Aegis to remain on high alert and deployed ground teams to fortify the settlement. Barriers were erected around the perimeter, and makeshift shelters were reinforced to protect civilians. The Valith worked alongside the humans, their glowing hands weaving energy shields into the defenses. Despite their fear, there was a quiet determination in their movements, a refusal to be driven back into the shadows. As night fell, the attack came without warning. A swarm of Zorathian drones descended from the sky, their metallic forms slicing through the darkness like blades. Explosions rocked the settlement as the invaders unleashed a barrage of plasma fire. Screams filled the air, but the defenders stood their ground. Dr. Ravi Patel crouched behind an overturned barricade, clutching a scanner as he relayed coordinates to the Aegis. "Marcus, I got a lock on their command drone," he shouted over the comm. "Take it out." Up in orbit, Marcus manned the ship's weapons console, his fingers flying over the controls. With pinpoint accuracy, he fired a volley of missiles, obliterating the lead drone and scattering the others. Cheers erupted from the ground team, but the victory was short-lived. More drones poured in, relentless and unforgiving. Engineer Maidlin fought alongside the Valith engineers, using their combined technology to create improvised EMP devices. When activated, these gadgets sent waves of electromagnetic energy rippling through the battlefield, disabling entire squadrons of drones at a time. But each success came at a cost. The strain of constant combat weighed heavily on everyone. Amidst the chaos, Guardian Prime appeared once again, its holographic form flickering erratically. "The Zorathians are targeting the settlement's core generator," it warned. "If they destroy it, your defenses will collapse." Alina turned to Syra, who stood nearby, her luminous skin dimmed by exhaustion. "We need to hold the line," Alina said firmly. "Can your people reinforce the shield around the generator?" Syra hesitated, then nodded. "We'll do what we must." Together, the Valith channeled their energy into the shield, strengthening it against the relentless assault. Meanwhile, Alina led a counterattack, rallying both human soldiers and Valith warriors to push back the enemy forces. Side by side, they fought, not as 2 separate species, but as one united front. Just when it seemed the tide might turn in their favor, a massive explosion shook the battlefield. One of the Zorathian cruisers had broken through the planet's atmosphere, its cannons trained directly on the settlement. Panic spread among the defenders, but Guardian Prime made a final desperate move. "I can delay them," the AI said, its voice calm yet resolute. "Activate my core, and I will broadcast our location to all nearby systems. The galaxy must know the truth about the Zorathians." "No," Elena protested. "You'll be destroyed." "It is necessary," Guardian Prime replied. "Trust me." With no other options left, Elena gave the order. As Guardian Prime transferred its consciousness into the cruiser's targeting system, it overloaded the enemy ship's engines, causing it to self-destruct in a blinding flash of light. The remaining Zorathian forces retreated, unwilling to risk further losses. When the dust settled, the survivors emerged from cover, battered but alive. Syra approached Alina, tears streaming down her face. "Guardian Prime sacrificed itself for us," she whispered. "It believed in unity, in hope." Alina placed a hand on her shoulder. So do I. And so should you. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. The aftermath of the battle left Terra Nova scared but not broken. Smoke still curled into the sky from smoldering craters, and the air carried the faint metallic tang of burnt circuits and singed earth. Yet, amidst the destruction, there was a sense of quiet triumph. The Vailith and humans had stood together against overwhelming odds, and they had survived. Captain Alina Voss surveyed the settlement from a hilltop, her boots crunching softly on the charred grass. Behind her, teams worked tirelessly to repair the damage. Engineers patched up damaged barriers, medics tended to the wounded, and farmers began replanting crops destroyed in the attack. Despite the exhaustion etched onto every face, there was an undeniable spark of determination, a refusal to let despair take root. Syra joined Alina, her luminous skin glowing faintly in the morning light. "We owe you everything," she said quietly. "Without your leadership, we would have perished." Alina shook her head. "This wasn't just my victory. It was ours. Your people fought bravely alongside mine. Together, we proved that unity isn't just a word, it's a weapon." Syra nodded thoughtfully, her gaze drifting toward the horizon. Guardian Prime believed in that unity. It gave its life so we could live. We must honor its sacrifice by building something lasting here. With renewed resolve, the two leaders set about creating a true home for the Vailith, one where their culture could flourish without fear of annihilation. Dr. Ravi Patel took charge of documenting Vailith traditions, spending hours listening to elders recount stories of their golden age. He marveled at their poetry, their art, and their philosophy, which emphasized harmony with nature and cooperation among species. "Imagine what humanity could learn from this," Ravi told Mylin one evening as they pored over recordings in the makeshift lab. "Their approach to conflict resolution, their focus on sustainability. It's like they were centuries ahead of us in some ways." Mai smiled faintly, tinkering with a piece of salvaged Vailith technology. "And imagine what they can learn from us too. Look how quickly they adapted our defensive systems during the battle. They're resilient, Ravi. With time, they'll thrive again." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Marcus Kane coordinated efforts to fortify the settlement further. Using lessons learned from the recent attack, he helped design a network of hidden bunkers and early warning systems. "If the Zorathians come back, and they will, we need to be ready," he explained to Syra. "But don't worry. This time, we won't rely solely on force. We'll outsmart them." The collaboration between humans and Vailith extended beyond practical matters. Children from both species played together under the watchful eyes of their parents, learning each other's languages and customs. Songs once sung only by the Vailith now echoed through the settlement, blending with human melodies to create something entirely new. As weeks turned into months, the scars of war began to fade. Trees sprouted from the ashes, and laughter replaced the echoes of explosions. The Vailith started to rebuild not just their homes but their identity, a blend of their ancient heritage and the hope kindled by their alliance with humanity. One evening, Alina stood before a gathering of settlers, both human and Vailith, to dedicate a monument honoring Guardian Prime. Carved from translucent crystal found deep within Terra Nova's mountains, the statue shimmered in the moonlight, casting soft hues across the crowd. "This memorial represents more than sacrifice," Alina said, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "It reminds us that even in the darkest moments, unity can shine brighter than fear. Let it guide us as we build a future worth protecting." Syra stepped forward, placing a hand on the base of the statue. "To Guardian Prime," she whispered, her voice carrying over the silent crowd. "And to the bond it helped forge between our peoples." Cheers erupted, echoing across the valley. For the first time in centuries, the Vailith dared to dream of a world free from hiding, a world where they belonged. And as Alina looked around at the faces illuminated by the glow of the monument, she knew that the seeds of peace had taken root. But peace was fragile, and shadows still lingered on the edges of their newfound sanctuary. Somewhere out there, the Zorathians plotted their next move. Until then, The survivors of Terra Nova would stand vigilant, united by the promise of a better tomorrow. Months passed, and the settlement on Terra Nova flourished. The once barren fields were now lush with crops, tended by both human farmers and Vylith cultivators who shared knowledge of sustainable agriculture. Buildings rose from the ground, blending Earth's sturdy architecture with the flowing elegance of Vylith design. Children played freely under the watchful eyes of their elders, learning not only survival skills, but also the stories of two intertwined cultures. But while life seemed peaceful, Captain Alina Voss knew better than to let her guard down. She spent countless hours in the command center aboard the Aegis, monitoring long-range sensors for any sign of Zorathian activity. So far, the galaxy had been ominously quiet, a silence that gnawed at her instincts. One evening, as she reviewed reports with Lieutenant Marcus Kane, an urgent message crackled through the comm system. It was from Federation Command, relayed via subspace transmission. "Captain Voss," came the stern voice of Admiral Hayes, "we've intercepted intel suggesting the Zorathians are mobilizing forces near your sector. They're gathering allies among neutral species, spreading propaganda about the threat posed by the Vylith-Human Alliance." Alina frowned, exchanging a glance with Marcus. "Propaganda? What kind of lies are they telling?" "They claim you're harboring dangerous insurgents, remnants of the Vylith intent on destabilizing galactic order," Hayes replied grimly. "Some factions are already calling for intervention." Marcus clenched his fists. "This is just another excuse to justify genocide. If we don't act fast, they'll rally support against us." Alina nodded sharply. "Understood, Admiral. We'll handle it." As the transmission ended, she turned to Marcus. "We need to counter their narrative before it spreads further. Ideas?" Dr. Ravi Patil entered the room just then, holding a data tablet filled with recordings of Vylith history and culture. His face lit up with determination. "What if we expose them instead? Share the truth about the Zorathians' atrocities, not just to the Federation, but to the entire galaxy." Mai Lin, who had been working quietly in a corner, looked up. "It could work. With Guardian Prime gone, we can use its final broadcast logs as evidence. Combine that with testimonies from the Vylith survivors. It's undeniable proof." Alina considered the plan, weighing the risks. Broadcasting such information would put Terra Nova squarely in the spotlight, making it a target for retaliation. But staying silent meant allowing the Zorathians to twist reality unchecked. "Do it," she said finally. "Ravi, gather everything you have. May, prepare the comms array. We'll transmit the message across every available channel." Over the next few days, the crew worked tirelessly to compile the evidence. Footage of the derelict ship, holographic records of the Vylith's golden age, and first-hand accounts of the Zorathian attacks were woven into a powerful documentary. When completed, it painted a vivid picture of oppression, survival, and resilience, a call to action for all sentient beings. As the broadcast went live, reactions poured in from across the galaxy. Some species condemned the Zorathians outright, pledging aid to protect Terra Nova. Others remained skeptical, swayed by years of anti-Vylith rhetoric. Tensions escalated quickly, with skirmishes breaking out near neutral territories. Back on Terra Nova, Syra watched the unfolding events with a mixture of hope and anxiety. "You've made us visible again," she told Elena one night, as they stood beneath the stars. "But visibility comes with danger." "I know," Elena replied softly, "but hiding isn't living. Together, we'll face whatever comes next." Her words carried weight, but so did the shadows gathering on the horizon. The Zorathians weren't done yet, and their response would be swift and merciless. Yet, even as fear lingered, something brighter burned within the hearts of those on Terra Nova. Unity forged in fire, unyielding and indomitable. For now, the seeds of hope had taken root, and no storm could extinguish them completely. The galaxy was in turmoil. The broadcast exposing the Zorathians' atrocities had ignited a firestorm of debate, dividing species and factions across the stars. Some rallied to Terra Nova's defense, sending supplies, volunteers, and messages of solidarity. Others sided with the Zorathians, convinced by their propaganda that the Vailith were a threat to galactic stability. The lines were drawn, and war loomed on the horizon. On Terra Nova, preparations for battle intensified. Captain Alina Voss knew they couldn't rely solely on external support. They had to fortify their position from within. Every able-bodied settler, human or Vailith, was trained in combat tactics and defensive strategies. Engineers worked around the clock to upgrade weapons systems and construct additional bunkers. Even children learned basic survival skills, ensuring no one would be left unprepared. Syra stood at the forefront of these efforts, her leadership unwavering despite the weight of responsibility. "We've spent centuries running," she told her people during a gathering. "But now we have allies who believe in us. Together, we'll show the Zorathians that we cannot be erased." Her words resonated deeply, igniting a fierce determination among the Vailith. They channeled their energy into crafting innovative defenses, blending their ancient technology with human ingenuity. One such creation was an energy shield capable of repelling plasma-based weaponry, the hallmark of Zorathian firepower. Mei Lin marveled at its design. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," she said to Ravi as they tested it. "If this works, it could turn the tide." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Marcus Kane devised unconventional tactics to counter the Zorathians' superior numbers. Drawing inspiration from guerrilla warfare, he proposed using Terra Nova's dense forests and rugged terrain to ambush enemy forces. "They expect us to fight head-on," he explained to Alina. "Instead, we'll strike fast, hit hard, and vanish before they can retaliate." As the days passed, reports came in of Zorathian fleets amassing near Terra Nova. Their arrival wasn't a question of if but when. Alina called a final strategy meeting, bringing together key leaders from both species. "This is our home now," she declared, her voice steady yet impassioned. "And we will defend it, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who believes in peace over oppression." When the attack finally came, it was swift and brutal. The night sky lit up with streaks of crimson as Zorathian ships descended upon the planet. Plasma blasts tore through the atmosphere, targeting the settlement's outer defenses. But the defenders were ready. Using the newly constructed energy shields, the settlers held firm against the initial assault. Hidden snipers picked off drones, while mobile strike teams led by Marcus launched surprise attacks behind enemy lines. The Vailith warriors, guided by Syra, wielded their unique abilities to disrupt Zorathian communications, causing chaos among the invaders. Yet, even as the battle raged, Alina realized they needed more than brute force. They needed to strike at the heart of the Zorathian Empire. Turning to Ravi, she asked, "Can we hijack their transmission network? Broadcast our message directly to their troops?" Ravi hesitated but nodded. "It's risky, but possible. If we can tap into their system, we can expose the truth about their leaders' crimes, not just to the galaxy, but to their own soldiers." With time running out, Alina assembled a small infiltration team consisting of herself, Marcus, and 2 Vailith volunteers. Under cover of darkness, they slipped past enemy lines, navigating treacherous terrain until they reached a Zorathian command outpost. Inside, they hacked into the communication array, broadcasting Syra's impassioned plea to the Zorathian ranks. "Your masters lie to you. They fear unity because it threatens their power. Join us in forging a future where all beings are free." The effect was immediate. Confusion spread through the Zorathian forces, sowing doubt and dissent. Some units withdrew entirely, unwilling to continue fighting for a cause built on falsehoods. Though the battle wasn't over, the tide had shifted. Humanity and the Vailith fought side by side, proving that cooperation was stronger than conquest. As dawn broke over Terra Nova, Alina gazed at the battered but unbroken settlement. "We're not just surviving," she whispered to herself. "We're winning." And for the first time, Victory felt within reach. The final echoes of battle faded as the Zorathian forces retreated, their once unstoppable advance shattered by the resilience and ingenuity of Terra Nova's defenders. The settlement stood battered but unbroken, its people weary yet triumphant. Smoke curled into the morning sky, mingling with the golden light of a new day, a symbol of hope rising from the ashes. Captain Alina Voss walked through the ruins, her boots crunching over debris. Around her, settlers worked tirelessly to rebuild what had been lost. Human and Vailith hands moved in harmony, clearing rubble, repairing shelters, and tending to the wounded. Despite the scars left behind, there was an undeniable sense of pride in the air, a shared understanding that they had faced their darkest hour and emerged victorious. Syra approached Alina, her luminous skin glowing softly despite the toll of recent days. "We did it," she said quietly, her voice tinged with awe. "Not just for ourselves, but for all who believe in peace." Alina nodded, placing a hand on Syra's shoulder. "This is only the beginning. The galaxy saw what happened here today. They'll remember how we stood together, and how unity can overcome even the greatest odds." Word of Terra Nova's victory spread quickly across the stars. Neutral species that had once hesitated to take sides now rallied around the fledgling alliance, inspired by the courage of its people. Ships arrived daily, carrying aid and reinforcements. Among them were delegations from distant worlds eager to learn about the Vailith's culture and history, testament to the power of storytelling in bridging divides. Dr. Ravi Patel became the unofficial ambassador for this cultural exchange, sharing recordings of Vailith poetry, art, and philosophy with visitors. "Their wisdom could change the way we think about coexistence," he told Mai Lin one evening as they watched settlers dance beneath the stars. "Imagine if every conflict started with dialogue instead of destruction." Mai smiled faintly, her hands busy repairing a piece of Vailith tech gifted to her by one of the elders. "Maybe someday. But for now, let's focus on making sure this place stays safe." Lieutenant Marcus Kane oversaw the establishment of a permanent defense network, training both human and Vailith recruits to protect their home. Yet even as he drilled them in combat tactics, he emphasized the importance of diplomacy. "Strength isn't just about weapons," he reminded his students. "It's about knowing when to fight and when to extend a hand." As weeks turned into months, Terra Nova transformed into more than just a refuge. It became a beacon of hope. Its success proved that differences didn't have to divide, that collaboration could create something greater than the sum of its parts. Children grew up learning multiple languages, celebrating festivals from both cultures, and dreaming of futures where no one lived in fear. One evening, Alina gathered the settlers for a ceremony honoring those who had fallen during the battle. Beneath the shimmering monument to Guardian Prime, she addressed the crowd. "Today, we honor not just our losses, but also our triumphs. Together, we've shown that unity is stronger than hatred, that hope endures even in the face of despair. Let us carry this legacy forward, not just for ourselves, but for all who seek a better tomorrow." Syra stepped forward, holding aloft a crystal orb etched with symbols of both species. "This represents our bond," she declared, "a promise that we will never again allow division to weaken us. From this day forward, we are one people, united under the stars." Cheers erupted, echoing across the valley. For the first time in centuries, the Vailith dared to dream of a future free from fear, a future shaped by cooperation and mutual respect. And as Alina looked around at the faces illuminated by the glow of the orb, she knew the journey was far from over. Challenges would come, but so would opportunities, to heal, to grow, and to inspire. In the vast expanse of the universe, Terra Nova burned brightly, a testament to the power of unity. And though the road ahead remained uncertain, one truth was clear: no one need face the stars alone.